Hello, it's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, the Birmingham bin strike rumbles on as workers reject an offer by the City Council. Unions say the offer didn't address a potential pay cut of up to £8,000 for hundreds of lorry drivers. The council says the union is trying to save a role that doesn't exist in other authorities. Tonight, with the strike into its 6th week, we'll take a look at this latest setback and discuss the ongoing health risk to the public. Also ahead, another violent attack in a UK prison. A convicted murderer was killed at HMP March in Cambridgeshire yesterday. It comes as the Justice Secretary promises an independent review into the attack on 3 prison officers by the brother of the Manchester Arena bomber. Plus, no plans for a review of Chinese involvement in critical UK infrastructure. That's the message from Downing Street after ministers stepped in to save British steel. We'll have the latest as the government says it is confident the blast furnaces in Scunthorpe will keep running. And McIlroy, the master at Augusta. After Rory McIlroy completed the career Grand Slam, we'll visit the golf club in Northern Ireland where it all began. And I'll speak to winning Ryder Cup captain Paul McGinley for his reaction. All that's coming and much more on the UK Tonight. So, Birmingham's bin strikes are going to continue. This is after workers overwhelmingly rejected a pay offer from the City Council this afternoon. Union bosses said the deal didn't address a potential pay cut for hundreds of bin lorry drivers of up to £8,000. The council says the offer was fair and reasonable, and the union is protecting a role that doesn't exist in other councils. Well, the strike has now entered its 6th week, and with thousands of tonnes of rubbish yet to be collected and fears of a public health emergency, the government has called in the army to help. From Birmingham, our People and Politics correspondent Nick Martin has our first report tonight.
For 6 weeks, the council and the union have been locked in dispute, and all the while, rubbish swirls on the city's streets.
They've cleaned it. When was it? A couple of days ago, Anwar?
A couple of days ago.
And it's already starting back.
The community litter pickers have had enough, desperate for a deal that could end this. But a deal is far from done.
You are presumably well used to sites like this now.
You know what? It was bad before, but now it's just colossal. Now we can't deal with it.
And what's your message to the council, to the elected leaders who run this city?
They need to sort this out. They need to sort the bin strike out ASAP. We've also got a massive increase in rats and mice, I was telling you. Even in the houses, residential houses, we've got people in our groups telling us that the rats are coming into the house and stuff. I've got a mice infestation where I live as well now. I didn't have one before. I understand where the bin men's frustration is, but this isn't fair on the rest of us. It needs to be fixed. They need to come to something and they need to fix it straight away.
Birmingham has had a tough time recently. This is the 3rd bin strike in under 10 years. And in 2023, the council declared itself effectively bankrupt. This dispute threatens to cost the city millions of pounds.
Even when piles of rubbish like these are collected, they still need to be processed. Neighbouring councils have been coming in to try and help, as have private companies. And it's the cost of clearing that backlog which is mind-boggling. Waste removal experts have told us that the cost of the clean-up could be in excess of £200 million.
Clearly, we have to pick up the bill. So what has this council learned over the years? They've learned nothing. Yeah, every time that you're getting into a strike, it's we as the general public have to pick up the bill. Our bills are going up and our services are going down. So we're frustrated.
The MP here is frustrated too.
Do you think that Unite Union has been willing to put the public's health at risk to get the deal that it wants, knowing what will happen if the bins aren't collected?
I can't speak for Unite. What I can say is I wrote to the City Council raising my concerns very early on about the public health issue because, you know, we cannot see vermin on the streets in the way that we've seen people writing to me, sending me pictures of cockroaches, of rats.
Any hopes that a deal could be reached fell away when union members voted overwhelmingly to reject the latest offer. The council said it was incredibly disappointing. The government urged the union to call off the strikes.
There is a huge amount of anxiety in this city among people whose homes have got rats in them and mice in them. You are putting the public's health at risk, aren't you, and using that as leverage to get your deal over the line?
Do you accept that?
No, absolutely not. We're not leveraging the public in any way whatsoever. What's happening here is that our members are facing a pay cut. It's not our deal. This is of the council's making. The council have put forward a proposal that would lead to a sharp drop in pay for our members. So you are absolutely right. There's massive anxiety. But how about the anxiety of thinking, am I going to be able to pay my rent and my mortgage?
The clear-up has begun here, but without a deal, the rubbish will return. Birmingham's problems will begin to pile up all over again. Nick Martin, Sky News, Birmingham.
Well, let's get more on the potential health risks for the residents of Birmingham. We're joined now by community leader and health and safety consultant Anwar Afzal. Anwar, good of you to join us tonight. You live in Birmingham. You're entrenched in the community there. I understand you've had a brief period of respite in terms of your rubbish has been cleared, and I know a number of other streets have been cleared. But just describe to me what the last 5 weeks have been like.
It's been horrendous. From a health and safety point of view, it's been horrendous. It's an environmental hazard. And the problem is Birmingham City Council are obliged to follow the Environmental Protection Act, Section 45, which places a duty upon them to ensure that our household and recycling waste are actually removed as soon as possible. That's not happened. One of the problems, there are two problems. One is Birmingham City Council Cabinet, who are not fit for the purpose. When they have been elected to sit in a particular capacity, nobody looks at their background and their skills and knowledge. All it is, he's a good friend of mine, let's vote him in. So
Birmingham City Council would argue that actually, you know, they're trying to balance the books here. We all know the financial precarious situation that the City Council find themselves in, and they say that the restructuring they're trying to make in this department is part of saving money and making it more cost efficient. They're saying it's a number of bin workers. I think they quote around 17 that are holding them to ransom over this. So I've just got to put across what Birmingham City Council will say.
But yeah, the problem is it's not from today. The finance issue has always been there because they, again, like I said, they don't know what they're doing. And because they don't know what they're doing, they're just leading without any management skills. And that is the major problem from that perspective. If they knew what they were doing, the first thing they should have done is had an environmental disaster plan, an emergency disaster plan. Basically, that means that if you've got whatever issue is, whatever emergency is, you've always got a backup plan for it. They haven't got a backup plan. And because they haven't got a backup plan, that means that this is what's happened today is that we've got tons and tons of rubbish, rats and vermin, and causing diseases to vulnerable people, to adults, to children, and to disabled people.
What's the worst you've seen, Anwar? Because you know, a lot of the headlines have concentrated on the rats, but you know, when it comes to rubbish, there's foxes, cats, seagulls, maggots, flies. What's the worst you've seen? Because we understand that, particularly in the built-up areas of Birmingham, the city centre has been particularly bad.
Yeah, I mean, mainly in Asian areas like Adam Rock, Small Heath, Park Brook, there's a lot of it going on, and people are fed up. And one of the reasons is that even if they want to take the rubbish to a tip, they have to get an allocated time to do so, and there are no appointments available. So what they do is they find the nearest corner and dump it there. And not only them, but also people who haven't got cars, people who are elderly and can't go to a tip. So therefore, it could create another issue. And by doing so, the problem prolonged. One of the issues today, as you mentioned earlier on, is that the military have taken a role in the logistic and the operation situation. This is something that Birmingham City Council should have done in the first place. They shouldn't have done, if they had the skills and the knowledge, they wouldn't need to do it. And it's a bit too late to do it now, I think.
Well, you know, it is coming in now, but perhaps you could explain how was your rubbish removed today? Because we understand over the last few days, since last week. People's streets have been cleared of the rubbish. Is that private contractors? Because not everyone can afford that. How is the rubbish being moved without...
Basically, we have mobile household lorries that come to a certain area, and then we have to take it to that area. There are some that goes into the road and deliver it to the resident, remove the waste from the resident. However, the residents are not informed that this is happening. And so what happens is they miss a collection. And so if the bin was going to be emptied on a certain day and the lorry was coming, if they don't know about it, how can they put the bins out? And even with the temporary bin men, the problem is that if you've got a bag which is on top of the bin, they will not take that bag. That's their policy.
OK, well, this issue hasn't been resolved. This is a brief period of respite for many residents. But, you know, as it's been reflected already here this evening, this problem will return. What would be your message to the council this evening?
I say to the council, if there are, I mean, their issue is saying that, we haven't got the money and we can't. We're cutting down. Yeah, there are ways to do it. Privatize it. Privatize the refuge collection and let somebody else have that problem. Yeah, and in every industry, there's always redundancies. So it's no, yeah, I do have some sympathy with the bin men, but at the end of the day, they should also be loyal to their own city, and they're not.
OK, Anwar Afzal, community leader and health and safety practitioner, joining us from Birmingham this evening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
The Justice Secretary has ordered an independent review into the attack on 3 prison officers by the brother of the Manchester Arena bomber. 2 officers remain in hospital with serious injuries after Hashim Abedi threw hot oil at them and stabbed them with homemade weapons. Meanwhile, news has emerged of a second violent prison attack that happened over the weekend with a convicted murderer found dead at HMP Whitemoor in Cambridgeshire. Another prisoner was arrested. Sky's Molly Malone is here. So, Molly, first of all, tell us about this serious incident. This was in a Category A prison. What do we know about it?
Well, John Mansfield had been serving 2 life sentences, the first for murdering his former neighbour back in 2007. He was then given a second life sentence after he stabbed another prisoner at a jail in York back in 2014. We understand Mansfield was attacked yesterday afternoon at a high-security jail, a Category A prison, HMP Whitemoor in Cambridgeshire. The police then said they'd arrested a 44-year-old man on suspicion of murder. And we understand that he was attacked in what's known as a close supervision centre. These are, if you're talking about high-security jails, it's the next level up, if you like. It's that unit that is really highly kind of looked after by staff. There's a really high staff-to-prisoner ratio. So there will definitely be questions about how this was able to happen in what was the tightest of security type areas inside the highest security jail.
Second incident inside 3 days. What's the official response been?
Well, yeah, the second one that you're referring to is at HMP Frankland, another high security jail, Category A in Durham, where Hashim Abedi, one of the men involved in the Manchester Arena bombings, allegedly attacked 3 prison officers with hot cooking oil before stabbing them with what's believed to be homemade, improvised, they call it, weapons. This attack was also, as we understand it, in a separation unit. So again, not dissimilar to the other one, in a very tightly secured unit. One of those prison officers was discharged from hospital over the weekend. 2 others remain in hospital with serious injuries. But what followed after that attack was a series of calls to action, really. One from the Prison Officers Association saying that actually prisoners like Abedi should not have access to kitchen facilities, to the types of weapons that he was able to gain access to. And we understand as of today, from today, the government have banned in separation units and close supervision centres the access to those types of materials, but also, as you'd understand, from the families of the Manchester Arena bombings, writing, as we understand it, to the Justice Secretary, talking about the disbelief that this was able to happen. We have actually had a statement from the Ministry of Justice who've said, our thoughts remain with the victims of the Manchester Arena bombing and their families who are understandably concerned by the shocking attack at HMP Frankland this weekend. Will also launch a full independent review into how this attack was able to happen, and will set out the terms and scope of this review in the coming days. So that's a government review on top of a police investigation. But 2 very, very serious incidents in a matter of 3 days. There'll be questions for the prison service about how this was able to happen.
Molly, thank you. Molly Malone there with the update. Thank you. Downing Street says there are no plans for a review of China's involvement in the UK's critical national infrastructure. This is after the government had to step in at the weekend to save British steel. Ministers had to act over fears the firm's Chinese owners would allow the blast furnaces in Scunthorpe to go out, effectively ending steel production in the UK. Today, the government said the materials needed to keep the plant going have been paid for, and the furnaces will keep burning. But there are now questions over the links between British Steel's owners and the government in Beijing, and questions over why a foreign power was given control of the industry. Our business correspondent Paul Kelso has more.
Waiting to be shipped to Scunthorpe, some of the raw materials the government has spent the weekend scrambling to secure to protect the short-term future of British Steel's blast furnace plant. Literally keeping the home fires burning matters, because if these furnaces go out, the plant is dead. With fresh supplies of iron ore en route from Australia and coking coal from the United States, the Deputy Prime Minister is confident it has a future.
We've got the raw materials, they've been paid for, and we're confident that the furnaces will continue to fire. We've taken the action we've taken over the weekend. It was important that we did that. We secured the site.
Having seized control of the company from its Chinese owners at the weekend, the Prime Minister met new Chief Executive Alan Bell, on the right here. He will work alongside a team from consultants EY on short-term survival and a long-term plan, likely to start with nationalisation.
There's still a lot of discussion that needs to take place about what comes next. You know, what are the plans under this new rule of the Labour Party, the Labour government. So we're still waiting to get that detail as to what's going to follow after the weekend. But yeah, I think it's safe to say that we feel a lot more secure now than we did before.
Locally, there's relief that the plant and its 2,700 jobs have a reprieve.
It's having a real big impact. Our business has gone down by about 60% for the guys not coming out.
So my partner's worked there for, I think, about 2 years now. So we still don't know what the outcome is. We're still in that random space of do they have jobs, do they not have jobs?
Ministers and management say their intervention is justified because only coal-fired Scunthorpe can produce the virgin steel used from railways to defence. But government support for Tata Steel's Port Talbot works will support a transition to electric arc furnaces fed with recycled steel, a potentially more sustainable alternative.
We've got the feedstock here. We don't have supplies of coke and iron ore, but we do have our own scrap. So we could be operating in a closed loop, powering it with renewables or nuclear, and then we would have a green, clean steel industry, which is categorically the way of the future.
With Scunthorpe losing £700,000 every day and Donald Trump's trade war deflating steel prices, forging a long-term future for the British steel industry remains an enormous challenge. Paul Kelso, Sky News.
Well, let's get some more now on China's involvement here in the UK. We can speak to former Director of Operations and Intelligence for MI6, Nigel Inkster. Nigel, good to see you this evening. First of all, I want to get your reaction to that announcement from Downing Street earlier that there will be no review of Chinese involvement in UK infrastructure. Your reaction to that?
Well, I think it says infrastructure. It doesn't say critical infrastructure, and there is a difference between the two. So I'm not quite sure what the current government action is in terms of determining vulnerabilities when it comes to critical national infrastructure. And I think the Scunthorpe case with Jing Ye, my lawyers always used to remind me when I was in government that hard cases make bad law, and it's clear that Scunthorpe is in many ways a hard case. But I think in the light of experience elsewhere in the world, it is incumbent upon all governments to be more aware of the potential geostrategic and security risks of certain forms of investment. I'm not saying that we should be averse to all forms of investment in China. But I think in the current geopolitical climate, this is going to be a much more difficult trick to pull than maybe our own government currently thinks. It's becoming clear, I think, that in the case of America under Donald Trump, the they're not rejecting alliance relationships, but are expecting allies in future to be much more compliant with their wishes and requirements. And I think that could include dealings with China, because the reality is the world is moving now towards a kind of larger bifurcation. We may not wish it to be so, but I think that is what's happening. And lots of countries, the UK amongst them, is going to be pressed to take sides. I think it's going to be much more difficult in future to strike the kind of balance that I suspect Downing Street is currently hoping may still be possible.
Yeah, Nigel, it's interesting, isn't it? Because British Steel seems to have been, when it was taken over by a Chinese owner, I mean, we talk about the UK being more aware of the bigger picture when it comes to China, but, it had a bit of a short-sighted view because no one else would take it on. No one else would take it on. It would have disappeared if this Chinese company hadn't come in and taken it on. And when you start to look at the bigger picture and Chinese involvement here in the UK, it's not just taking on the kind of industries that would have collapsed without them. It's, everything from utilities to universities. So in terms of when we talk about sensitive and critical infrastructure, it's not just involved there, but it's involved everywhere. Where are your areas for concern when it comes to China's involvement in the UK?
Well, I think, steel in many ways, I think, is critical, a strategic commodity. I think somebody said, if not Donald Trump himself, somebody in his administration said the other day, if you haven't got steel, you haven't got a country. And there is, in a way, some truth to that. In the past, it was a fairly safe bet that what the UK couldn't itself make, and I accept that British Steel has been problematic. We have problems, particularly with a high price of energy relative to other countries. Is that there are certain commodities that if they become monopoly productions by a country like China, potentially put you at risk. If China suddenly were to decide to interrupt the supply of critical commodities, and I guess that virgin steel would come into that. There are certain things that you can't afford to be dependent upon one particular source to obtain.
Nigel, thank you very much. You mentioned Trump and his administration there. We are going to take our viewers straight to Washington now because President Trump is appearing at the White House there with college football players assembled. He is meeting them. Let's take a listen in and see what unfolds.
That's a good-looking group behind me. And they're big. We're not going to get into any fights with them, I can guarantee you that. So I want to just congratulate everybody. Coach, you have done some job, man. But today is my great honor to welcome the 2024 College Football National Champions, the Ohio State University Buckeyes. And it turns out January 20th was a big day for all of us. That's true. That was a big day. I love that day. We'll never forget that day. To Ohio State President Ted Carter. Ted, where is Ted? Ted, congratulations. Good job, Ted. Wow. Athletic Director Ross Bjork. Ross, where's Ross? Hi, Ross. Congratulations. Did you know they were this good? He said, absolutely. That's a good answer. To Coach Ryan Day, who, and I have to read this because this is not part of it, but they gave me a little briefing. I knew how good a coach. I didn't know he was that good. It's Ryan Day, head coach at The Ohio State University. So here's just a little summary. Ryan was named head coach in December 2018. Think of this. First of all, he's a very young-looking guy. He's got a lot of time left. In his 6 seasons as head coach, Day has led the team to 9 championship wins. You don't do that. He's currently the only coach to lead his team to the college football playoffs 4 times since 2019. And his first season as head coach, and Coach Day's overall coaching record, 70-10. So in other words, Ryan, I'd like to be your agent. I want to represent you. And he won the big one, right? He won the big one. That's the biggest of them all. That's fantastic. Let me have your hand here, man. It's an amazing achievement at a young age in the entire...
President Trump there greeting the National College Football Champions at the White House. We'll leave proceedings there and continue with another sporting story, actually. We're going to talk about golf. Right, let's have a look at that. This Rory McIlroy winning the Masters after... well, quite a long time, actually. He finally made history last night, becoming only the 6th person ever to complete the career Grand Slam, winning the Masters at Augusta. He had to earn it, though. After leading going into the final day, he ended up in a sudden death playoff against Justin Rose.
The next generation teeing off in the birthplace of a golf legend.
You know, I have very vivid memories of when I was, 3 and 4 years of age, at Hollywood Golf Club, and they made a special exemption for me that they let me join as a junior member before the age limit, which was maybe 10 or 11.
This was the moment everything changed for local boy Rory McIlroy. A huge burden finally lifted. Even in his greatest triumph, thoughts turned to home.
I want to say hello to my mum and dad. They're back home in Northern Ireland.
They made a lot of sacrifices for you.
They did, and I can't wait to see them next week. I just can't wait to celebrate this with them.
At Hollywood Golf Club in County Down, they lived every stroke until victory. Today, you get the impression the Grand Slam hasn't quite sunk in yet.
It's hard to put into words, to be quite honest with you. Obviously, Rory's now only the 6th player to have ever won the Grand Slam, so he's following the likes of Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods. And for somebody from a small town in County Down, from a very small island of Ireland, to do what he has done is just incredible.
Come on, have another pitch.
His parents' living room in Hollywood was his earliest fairway. The qualities imbued in this small town outside of Belfast stood the Masters champion in good stead.
Never did waver his understanding of where he came from, understanding of the privilege that he'd been given, understanding of the talent he'd been given. And, for all that to come together finally last night was extraordinary. And I know that I speak on behalf of so many people, particularly from home, who will have been just watching him with joy and with pride.
At his old school in Hollywood, which also hands out green blazers, pupils too young to remember Rory's last major win were taking it in.
Having a golfer from here that's won the career Grand Slam, I think, is just so huge. And I think even people that haven't played golf will hear about it, and I think it'll inspire them.
Even some of our friends were watching it and they'd never ever watched golf or anything before, and they were like, is it always this exciting? So yeah.
The inspiration that he gave us, he's showed how to be determined and to have the right mindset constantly, and that'll get you towards your goals. And I think that's really inspiring for all us students here in Sullivan.
Rory McIlroy biscuits were flying out of the local bakers today, but the sweetest moment is yet to come here. This was his homecoming with his first major trophy. They cannot wait for him to return with the completed set. Stephen Murphy, Sky News in Hollywood, County Down.
And we'll have more on Rory McIlroy's Masters triumph a little later in the programme. I'll get the views of Ryder Cup winning captain Paul McGinley. That's coming up at around 8:40. Still to come here on the programme, Finding God in the Ring, the pro wrestler with a Christian message. And 2025 is set to be the worst year on record for wildfires here in the UK after a damp winter and dry and breezy spring make for ideal conditions for blazes. The UK is on track for its worst ever year for wildfires. Firefighters have already fought 115 of them this year, according to figures from the European Forest Fire Information System, making 2025 the second worst year on record already, and we're only a few weeks into spring. According to the National Fire Chiefs Council, the numbers are even more stark, with fire and rescue services in England and Wales caught more than 400 wildfires so far this year. Let's speak now to Philip Garrigan, Chair of the National Fire Chiefs Council. Good evening to you. Good to see you. Data telling us that the UK is on course for the worst year yet. How come?
Yeah, we've had a really dry period, particularly through March and April. That's compounded by the fact that we had quite a damp winter, which has meant there's significant growth. And so far this year we've had 411 in England and Wales wildfires. If you take it to Scotland, they've had 466. And even over in Northern Ireland, just over a weekend, they've had 75 instances of wildfires. So it's been significantly challenging for fire and rescue services across the whole of the UK. And firefighters have been working in quite difficult environments on occasion to try and quell the scale of the wildfire and prevent them spreading into urban areas.
Yeah, talk to me about the scale of the wildfires. And are they starting a little earlier this year?
Yeah, as I say, if we compared it with 2022 was a significantly difficult period for fire and rescue service. We had, on one day, 14 major incidents declared. But we've had double the amount of wildfires so far this year in comparison.
Yeah, just looking at some of the devastation they cause, obviously the fire services want to contain them as quickly as possible. I was actually on air when this happened in Wellington back in 2022, and you can see the effects of those fires not being contained. As you said, that's the real fear, that they spread to people's homes. That was a particularly fierce one back in 2022. What causes them?
Yeah, there's multiple reasons, carelessness, on occasion, deliberate fire settings. So individuals who, want to see the effect of a wildfire spread will purposely torch some of the gorse and allow the fire to develop. Self-evidently, we work tirelessly with the police to prevent that and to identify individuals and bring them to justice. But it can be just down to simple carelessness, like people going out and having a barbecue, discarding the barbecue carelessly, discarding a cigarette, leaving out litter, glass bottles. They can all, result in fires occurring, and that fire developing quite quickly, given the dryness of the material, the grassland, the gorse, and that can spread rapidly. And as you've seen in the images that you've just shown of Wellington, that's become really problematic when it moves from. Sorry, go on.
No, please continue. Sorry, I was just looking at the pictures had changed there. They weren't of Wellington. I'm not sure what these ones are that we've just showed there, but please continue.
Yeah, look, and as I say, the fire can spread quite rapidly and move from rural areas into urban communities, and that's what the images of Wellington is an example of that. 18 properties were lost that day in London, and that's the kind of the significance of the wildfire threat these days.
Yeah, what kind of pressure do these fires put on your services?
Yeah, a huge amount of pressure. As I go back to 2022, we've got significantly less firefighters than we had back in 2008. We had 11,000 more firefighters. We've got 18% more calls that we're dealing with now in the last 10 years. So that's an extended pressure which is applied to fire and rescue services anyway. And as I say, 2022, 14 major incidents declared. Now that is hugely significant for the fire and rescue service. And a major incident means we bring in resources from elsewhere to support the fire and rescue service in that particular locality. But I was the Gold Commander that day, and I knew that was incredibly challenging because every fire and rescue service in the UK was already challenged dealing with its own incidents, despite the fact that 14 services needed some additional support.
Yeah, talk to me about resources. How prepared and equipped are fire services up and down the UK for these kind of fires? Something on the scale of Wellington, where it is so close to residential areas and moves so quickly. How prepared are the UK services for this?
Yeah, well, look, we do work with government, and the government have provided a significant amount of support financially to provide kind of specialist advisors to deal with such incidents and to advise fire and rescue services. But we do need some, sustained investment in the fire and rescue service moving forward, because, climate change is not going away. Whether it be wildfire or whether it be flood, we need to be sure that we've got the right capabilities, the right people in the right place at the right time to deal with incidents such as this. So, sustained investment back into the fire and rescue service should provide the public with reassurance that they remain safe during a climate crisis.
Yeah, you want the public's help as well, don't you, to prevent these kind of fires. We're in the Easter holidays. Obviously, any parent will know as soon as the Easter holidays finish, summer is soon upon us. So what's your message to the public tonight about preventing these fires?
Yeah, look, I go back to some of the causes of fires. So, self-evidently, don't set fires, don't have barbecues unless they're in defined areas, don't take the throwaway barbecues into rural areas, and they're very difficult to dispose of once lit, and people tend to leave them behind. Don't discard cigarettes, don't discard glass bottles. If you're out and about and you see a fire or developing, please phone 999. If you see people who are deliberately fire setting, please phone 999 for the police and also Crime Stoppers and advise us as such, and we will deal with the perpetrators of that crime. But yeah, please just be vigilant. Enjoy the weather if it is indeed sunny, but certainly be vigilant and be careful.
Philip, good to have you on tonight. Philip Garrigan there, Chair of the National Fire Chiefs Council,
Thank you.
talking about the UK wildfires. Appreciate your time. Thanks. Still to come on the programme, we're going to go to the church that is changing lives through professional wrestling. And as Rory McIlroy joins the all-time greats of golf, I'm going to speak to winning Ryder Cup captain Paul McGinley.
I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
We'd been warned that we would meet people in the lowest moment of their lives.
Their story is one of fundamental American failure. Well, a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club, but I have to say there are more media here than there are supporters.
We love Trump!
I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here, but the anger too. This is just the audience that Joe Biden wanted.
Is this the moment to reform gun laws?
You know, it's easy to go to politics.
But it's important, it's at the heart of the issue.
For all the talk of a toned-down, humbled Trump, yes, maybe there was just a little less rhetoric, a little less divisiveness, but in the end it was the same rhythm, the same speech, the same man.
All them people that died in Russia and Ukraine, they'd still be alive today if Donald Trump was president.
If it was my wish, have a businessman that's strong like Trump, but maybe just doesn't say as much, you know?
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What we've been allowed to see over here is a humanitarian corridor. Free wherever you get your news.
A young American medical student is making remarkable things happen.
I've seen a lot of difficult things, and honestly, it breaks my heart. These children don't deserve that.
I don't think there's a single Arab I know who isn't seriously disturbed by what's going on.
And so they gathered for this wonder of nature.
I'm very excited right now.
This is an extraordinary moment beyond anything I could have expected. Sky News, get the full story first.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Oh, let's get more now on Rory McIlroy's Masters win last night to seal his 5th major and, more importantly, the career Grand Slam. He is only the 6th golfer in the modern era to win every major. The Masters, the PGA Championship, the US Open and, of course, the Open Championship. Europe's Ryder Cup winning captain from 2014, Paul McGinley, joins me now to discuss Rory's incredible feat. Paul, how are you feeling? Have you calmed down after that? I think a lot of people are feeling quite tired and emotional still.
Yeah, I mean, I think the human element, Sarah-Jane, is what brought people into it. They all know the trials and tribulation that Rory has had in the last couple of years in these major championships and the near misses he's had and the opportunities that he's let slip through his fingers. So they were bought in from that. And like a Hollywood movie, everybody loves a redemption story and a comeback story. And then when you bring it into the actual play of the 18 holes, so that was the backdrop to it. And then you bring it into the 18 holes of play yesterday. And we had a small microcosm of it yesterday where just when he looked like he was going to go off into the distance, then he found a way of coming back to the field, and then he went off again, and then he came back to the field. It was quite extraordinary, and every time like he looked, he was like he was losing it. He managed to dig himself out of it again. It was sport at its best. Sport is always at its best when it's got volatility in the scoring lines, and we certainly had that yesterday.
We love the drama, like you said. We like the Hollywood story, Hollywood Northern Ireland or Hollywood America. He put himself through it, didn't he? And he put us through it. This is someone you've known since he was little, because Rory McIlroy has been on the scene since really young years. Just for those who are golf novices, who were brought into the Masters through this fairy tale story, what is so special about Rory McIlroy?
Whoa. Well, first of all, he's very dynamic in how he plays. He hits the ball further than anybody else at the top of the game. He's not a big, tall guy in stature, yet he generates enormous speed. And he's always done that. I've met him when he was 15, 16 years of age. And he was a big hitter back then. And he just got stronger and faster since then. So he plays a very dynamic game. He's also prone to making mistakes, as we saw yesterday. And people see the human element to that. And they buy into it. And they buy the fact that they don't know what's coming next from Rory. It can be brilliant, but it can be a mistake. And again, yesterday showed that a real small microcosm of it showed it yesterday. On the 13th hole, he had a straightforward pitch from 90 yards. There was water short of the green. There was no way the water was in play. 999 times out of 1,000, he's not hitting in that water. But somehow he managed to do it. And you think, oh, my God, he's going to lose it here. He took a 7 out of nowhere. And then 2 holes later, he's behind the trees on a par 5, and he hits a 40-yard sling hook with a 7-iron to about 8 feet from the flag. One of the greatest shots ever played at Augusta National. And just in those 3 holes there, 13, 14, 15, you saw what Rory McIlroy is all about and why people are, feel that he's magnetic when he's playing. He plays with a huge amount of charisma. His golf game is incredibly charismatic. And he's not afraid to have an opinion in the media either. And people like that. And it's sometimes it gets him in a bit of trouble, but sometimes it's refreshing because he's not one of the sports stars that will hide behind a soundbite all the time. He's not afraid to come off the fence and have an opinion.
Yeah, we want personality in the term sports personality, don't we? But we just saw there in the pictures we were showing some lovely footage of Rory McIlroy in his parents' front room practicing his putting. And then we saw those putts there at the Masters, the shot that won him that elusive win at the Masters to take the career Grand Slam, and the emotion after that. And in his interview after the win, he talked about his parents and the sacrifices they made, and he got emotional about seeing them next week. Can you just describe some of the emotion and the psychology that goes into the game of golf? Because everybody talks about mastering the swings and the shots, but it's what goes on up here, isn't it, in golf?
Well, the higher up the totem pole you go in the game, the more it is mentally, particularly when the pressure comes on. And the pressure had really built on him like nobody else. This is a guy who's been #1 for more of the last 10 years than anybody else. He has won tournaments all the way around the world, from Dubai to Australia, all over Europe, as well as all over America. He's dominated the PGA Tour in terms of wins over that period. He's won their Order of Merit. He's won our Order of Merit. He's won all the big titles in the game in the last 10 years, except a major championship. And there was a build-up of that over the last 10 years. And you were kind of riding that roller coaster of emotions with him because you could see the devastation when he wasn't winning, particularly last year when he was playing in the US Open and he really had it won and he finished terribly, bogeying 3 of the last 4 holes to let Bryson DeChambeau come in and sneak it from him and win that. So there was a bit of unfinished business yesterday. There was a bit of an edge between those 2 players. They were playing in the last group together. There wasn't a word spoken between each other the way around. And that's okay. It's rivalries. That's what professional sport is about. But yesterday had everything, Sarah-Jane. I mean, I've watched golf a long, long time. I've watched sport. I love all kinds of sport. That's up there with one of the greatest days in sport that I've ever seen. I put it up there with Medina 2012 in the Ryder Cup, the miracle at Medina, certainly in golfing context. It was just phenomenal. And the twos and fros. And when you think you've won it, then you lose it. And then you think you've lost it, then you win it. It was just an incredible roller coaster. And particularly when you've got a human connection with Rory, because we've been all on that journey the last 10 years with him, and the frustration that he had of not winning majors and all the criticism that was coming his way. And there was a huge amount of criticism that came his way that he wasn't getting it done and he didn't have the bottle and he couldn't play in these big events. He couldn't get it done. Well, he's just done it all. He's done it all in one go. He's won a major championship and now he's won the Grand Slam. Only 6th player in the history of the game to win the Grand Slam, i.e. all 4 major championships. It's a very, very rare feat. Only 2 players have done it in the last 59 years. One is Tiger Woods and one is Rory McIlroy.
Well, indulge me for a moment, because we're showing some pictures of you alongside Rory McIlroy, because he, of course, played for you at the Ryder Cup in 2014. So you know him really well. What does the future hold now for Rory? Because he's not done yet, has he? He has won all 4 majors. What more do you expect from him? Is this now just a springboard to go out there and take it all?
Well, nothing's a given in sport, as you know, but the indications are, I think the build-up of pressure, the release valves that he's had now after 10 years of frustration, almost 11 years of frustration, could well now propel him and unburden him to go ahead mentally and win maybe some major championships. The second thing in his favour is the next major is in Quail Hollow, which is in the PGA Championship in a month's time, the second major of the year. That's a golf course that he has dominated on the PGA Tour. He's won there 4 times, so he's very, very comfortable with it. Then the US Open goes to Congressional, and then it comes back to Portrush, his home course, and his home up in Northern Ireland, that he obviously knows very well and was the course record holder there for a large number of years. So they're looking good. And in terms of the next 5-10 years, he's almost 36 years of age, but his game he's such a dynamic player. He hits the ball so far that even if Old Father Time kind of catches up with him in the next few years and he loses a little bit of speed, he's still got plenty in reserve to still remain at the top of the game. A lot of guys who are average hitters in distance, because distance is so important nowadays, who are average hitters and they get towards their 40s and they start losing the speed as Old Father Time catches up, they kind of fall off the radar a bit. But Rory's got lots in the tank from that point of view because he's so powerful off the tee. So if his ambition stays strong and touch wood, he stays injury free, now that he's unburdened and unshackled by winning this major championship and completing the Grand Slam, well, there's no reason why he can't go on and accumulate more and maybe overtake Nick Faldo, who's got 6 majors. Rory sits on 5 now.
Paul, really great to talk to you and relive all of that magic. Paul McGinley there, golf fans, getting an early night tonight because it's been quite emotional and exhausting for those who stayed up late. Paul McGinley, thank you very much. Rory McIlroy, we understand, flying back to Northern Ireland next week to celebrate with his dad, Jerry, and mum, Rosie, who couldn't be there with him for that historic moment. Right, let's take a look at the rest of the day's sport. David's with us.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
Hello, my name is Matthew Atpan. This is my home. You want to come inside? I've got 2 Guinness World Records, but I've broken 3. The first one I did was dressing up as John Cena. I had to run the full marathon dressed in that costume, which is what gave me the world record of running the fastest marathon dressed as a professional wrestler. I was able to do that again for the half marathon. So the first one was at York, and then the second one was at Leeds half marathon in 2021 and 2022 respectively. We were all in COVID times when we all lost people. In particular, in my situation, I lost my grandma, and my dad unfortunately passed away from kidney failure in January 2021. And as a tribute to him and to everyone sort of like who had lost something, I wanted to sort of like do something to commemorate him. And that started by me choosing the Guinness World Record as the professional wrestler. John Cena sending me a congratulations tweet for my world record, my Guinness World Record. It was unbelievable, and that says to me that maybe I've done something good, in this world, and sort of I can have the impression that he's had on me. The third one I've broken is the amount of wrestlers' anthems to come out to in 1 minute, which I got to 18. That has since been broken now.
Instead of theme tunes, I'm going to ask you to name as many.
Sky Business sponsors this report.
Now, wrestling with faith has taken on a whole new meaning for the congregation of a church in West Yorkshire. St Peter's Anglican Church in Shipley is home to the Wrestling Church, which mixes Christian sermons with professional wrestling matches, and it is proving hugely popular. The founder, Gareth Thompson, says he was saved by pro wrestling and Jesus, and now he wants to help others. And Gareth, who wrestles under the name Gareth Angel, joins me now. Gareth, good evening to you. Good to see you.
Good evening. Great to be here.
So where did this idea come from?
Well, this all started back in 2018. I'd been sharing my own personal story of how I came to faith through a charity that I used to work for, and I'd been wrestling for quite a while. And whenever I mentioned I was a pro wrestler, all of a sudden people started paying attention. And I thought to myself, well, I've got a platform, it's inside the wrestling ring, and I want to share my story, share what Jesus has done in my life. And what a better way to do it than smack bang in the middle of a wrestling show. So that was 2018. We did that all over the country for different churches. They would ship us in with a wrestling ring and our crew. And we started seeing people come to faith and want to explore the Christian faith. So we were on to a winner. COVID hit, and during COVID, I thought, why don't we take that to the next step and look at doing stuff with a training school and men's mental health and kids and youth and kids at risk of exclusion. And that's been born here at St. Peter's. And every month we sell out 200 plus people coming to watch wrestling, cheer each other on, boo the bad guys, and then hear about faith.
It really is good versus evil, isn't it? But, you know, it's religious ceremonies and wrestling bouts playing out side by side, prayers before you begin, baptisms happening in between bouts. How did you win over the priest at St. Peter's to allow this to happen?
Well, Rev Natasha is, she's very much a kind of risk taker. She understands that there are a whole group of people that aren't coming to church anymore. I think there's a whole group of people who we're seeing come through the doors that have never been to church apart from, you know, a kind of a wedding or a funeral. And she understands that what we're doing is engaging people with the Christian faith in a new way. And she loves it. And the whole church is on board. They even attend the events. They cheer us on. So long as we make it look nice for Sunday morning, everything's good. And they love it.
Oh, well, listen, Gareth, it really has brought the community in through the doors of St. Peter's in Shipley, a creative way when there are declining numbers of people going to church. Thank you for telling us all about it. It's bringing new people. And as you said, you run a lot of workshops around the wrestling as well to do with mental health and young people in the community. Really interesting to hear from you. That's Gareth Thompson there, founder of Wrestling Church. Let's take a quick look at the weather now.
The ideal atmosphere, whatever the altitude. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
It's going to be cooler and more unsettled over the next week or so. Widespread showers and longer spells of rain. Western England, Western Wales and southeastern Scotland looking mostly wet this evening, but there'll be just a few showers elsewhere, mainly in the northwest. England, Wales and eastern Scotland can expect widespread showery outbreaks overnight, prolonged over western Wales, Cornwall and the south-east in particular, but many central parts of England looking dry. Ireland, Northern Ireland and western Scotland, meanwhile, will see showers fading inland with a patchy rural frost developing. Southwestern England and western Wales staying wet tomorrow morning, while central and southern England will see locally heavy showers as rain in the south-east clears.
Breathtaking views with clear skies ahead. Qatar Airways sponsors the weather.
That's all from the UK tonight. Back tomorrow night at 8. Up next, it's The World with Barbara Serra.